Hello and welcome to another divorce TV show. Hope you got your popcorn ready. I've got some great guests today. We have a financial expert, so you might be worrying about what's going to happen with the economy, pensions, buying, selling houses. These are all big issues when you're getting divorced. So we'll be talking to Henry Elliston about that. Also, we'll have updates on celebrity divorce news. And we'll end up with a fantastic chakra cleansing vibrational session with Julia at the end. If you don't know where your chakras are, you certainly will by the end of this show. But first of all, we're going to begin with divorce news. And today, with the divorce news, we're going to begin with some Yahoo news. In China about divorce, harassment and organ donors. Now China is having a debate about a new civil code. China's sweeping first ever civil code will be debated at its annual parliament meeting in Beijing this week. One of the key highlights of the proposed law is to scrap the divorce cooling off period. Now this proposal, which this is because this whole cooling off period thing has been very controversial. There's a rule to require a spouse suing their partner in court for divorce to have a 30-day cooling off period. And they're thinking about scrapping it. The reason is that the current draft of China's civil code says all couples seeking a divorce must deliberate on their decision for a month. So right, they've decided to divorce, they've going to make it official, they've got to hang around for a month and think about it. But the reason people in China have got very upset about this and they want it amended is, we'll just wait for this, it says this might be amended when China's parliament meets next week. A spokesman for the Legislative Affairs Committee of the National People's Congress told China Women's Daily after a massive public backlash against the current rule. Several lawmakers have said the cooling off period shouldn't apply to cases involving domestic violence, bigamy, marital rape or other rights violations, because at the moment it does. Now the waiting period would still apply to couples who are applying to dissolve their marriage through mutual consent. So what do you think about this? And please put your comments in, and please put your name on the comments if you want me to read it out. And we're going to have a bit of a waiting period here. I think it's going to be about 6 months once they finally bring in no-fault divorce. How is it over there in the States, in different states in America? Do you think there's any value at all in having a waiting period once people have gone through all the trauma of actually deciding that they are going to get divorced? Let me know your thoughts. And then the next story we've got is the Telegraph, the UK Telegraph, is talking about a boom in divorce proceedings in Italy as warring couples emerge from 10 weeks of lockdown. Apparently, 2 months of pent-up frustration and irritation during Italy's lockdown have led to a dramatic rise in divorce proceedings, lawyers said. Petty niggles over leaving the loo seat up or not doing the washing up, this is according to the Telegraph, have come to a head for many couples forced to live in close proximity since the country went into coronavirus shutdown in early March. In what may be a harbinger of what is to come in Britain, Italian lawyers report a 30% increase in the number of couples inquiring about or initiating divorce proceedings. Now, maybe I'm just being cynical, but I'm really wondering whether those figures are quite correct, because I imagine there's been a lot of people putting their divorce on hold during lockdown, and that maybe it's just a case of there's a little bit of a catch-up going on. But either way, have any of you ever initiated divorce proceedings because the toilet seat was left up, or you didn't like the way she did the spag bowl or something? So feel free to share it. I've not yet met anyone who's divorced for those reasons, but if you think that the Telegraph have got it right, then let me know. Then our third divorce story is, now I'm sure her name is Zoe, but it looks like Zooey, so that's what I'm going to call her. Zooey Deschanel settles divorce according to MSN. The actress-singer Zooey Deschanel is legally single again after settling her divorce. The New Girl star revealed her separation from film producer Jacob Petchenik in September after 4 years of marriage, and he began divorce proceedings in October. Now, the estranged couple, who share 2 children, opted to have a private judge oversee the case in December, and the exes have since reached a settlement with a court notice filed earlier this week. According to The Blast, details of the deal have not been released, but the terms cover custody and child support. So in other words, they've had a really peaceful, quite quick sorting out of settlement using what they call a private judge, which in other words is an arbitrator. Now, don't think that you have to be rich or famous to use an arbitrator. We have them in the UK even, and they specialise in finance, some of them also in child matters, and you can be spending hundreds rather than thousands on using them, and it's something that I'd love to tell you more about. So if any arbitrators watching this show, either in the States or the UK, please get in touch. It'd be great to have you on, because I believe arbitration is one of those things in the peace toolbox that a lot of people don't really know enough about how to use. We are now ready to talk about money with Henry.
Hi, Susie.
Henry, hang on, just bringing you in now.
Lovely.
Lovely to see you. And just in case anyone's wondering why there's a funny little black thing up in the corner of the screen, I just want them to know that is a QR code. And would you like to tell them what happens if they put their phone up to that QR code when it's on their camera mode?
Oh, I must confess, Susie, you're the expert. But what I think happens is your phone recognises it as a QR code, and it takes you through to a site that allows you to book in a free 15-minute phone call with me to see if I can help you in any way with your finances around your divorce.
Brilliant, thank you. And this is one of the good reasons to watch this show is you get fantastic offers like that. So it's lovely to have you on the show, Henry. I've got some particular questions that I'd like to ask you. So let's start with the obvious one. The markets, COVID has been having a real impact on the economy. So what's really been going on?
It's been extraordinary, really, and we haven't seen anything like it since the great financial crisis back in 2008. Of course, immediately we saw it in the FTSE 100, so the stock market of the biggest 100 companies in the UK. And whilst that had been trading at around about 7,500, it fell back to at one point 4,900. So it was around about a 40% paper loss to some people's savings there. It's come back a little bit now, so we're back up to about 6,000, but even so, that's still about 20% below where it was at the peak of the market.
So have some of your clients been having heart attacks over this?
We've had a few phone calls. Fortunately, my clients they're not solely exposed to just the FTSE 100, so they haven't seen the whole fall. And of course, they've been well educated, so they know that actually the markets will fall at times. I don't think anyone was necessarily expecting it this time, and the markets will recover and they will bounce back at some point in the future when we're all allowed out again.
When life apparently gets back to normal. Now, you're a specialist in divorce finances. You're even a member of Resolution, which is a family law association, aren't you? And you have quite a few clients who are in divorce scenarios. How is it affecting those that they've made their financial settlement and now they're thinking, oh God, everything's changing? So what kind of impacts have you been seeing?
Well, I think it is quite tricky, because certainly for those people who've made their settlements and they've been signed off by the courts, it's very tricky now to go back and change them in any way. And in fact, actually, past case law has said that financial crises, such as the one we're seeing at the moment, isn't sufficient to go back and change the settlement. So that does make things quite hard. For those who haven't yet been through the courts, then of course, it's for many going to be an opportunity to go back and revisit those agreements that they've made and perhaps renegotiate them. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is, of course, for people who are already divorced, any maintenance payments, that they're now receiving, they might be thrown into jeopardy because, of course, an awful lot of people, if they've been furloughed or lost their jobs, their income may well have been severely restricted by this. And so that might be making another layer of hardship for some people.
And if they, as you mentioned, if people, they've nailed that divorce financial settlement in a court, there's very little leeway to change it. If, however, for those who've managed to come to that agreement through something like mediation, they're probably in a better position to go back to the mediator and go, look, this isn't working like we planned. The things have happened, and to, in some cases, potentially renegotiate. If they're going to do that, would you recommend that they come and talk to you first, or to a financial planner?
Yeah, I think so. Normally, within any divorce negotiation, there's all sorts of different assets that are involved, whether it be pensions, properties, or what have you, and those will all have been affected in different ways within this divorce negotiation. So it may well be, if an offsetting plan has been put in place, that actually that offset is no longer a fair offset. One asset might have fallen in value more than another. So I think it absolutely makes sense just to go back and just to review the values that have all been set there, and to ensure that they're still fair, so that you get the best from your divorce negotiations and financial settlement. Yeah, absolutely.
And not to just panic and think, oh, it's not fair, but to actually get the information, because it might not be as complicated as they think to bring it back into balance. They're going to get that information more from a financial expert than they are from a lawyer in most cases. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And in truth, in some of the cases that I've looked at after COVID's come about, in actual fact, you're only talking about moving it by 1 or 2 percentage points either way. For a lot of cases. Now, there'll be some that are more affected than others, but it's important just to do that so that you're happy that you've got the best deal. But also, the other side is probably going to be, in many cases, will acknowledge the fact that they're getting a better deal and should be open to the fact that things need to change slightly. And certainly, I think the mediators will help facilitate that conversation, because certainly the mediators that I've spoken to have really understood that things have changed, and as we see the markets here in May, it's very different to how we saw the markets back in February.
And can you tell us a little bit about with pensions? So let's say personal pensions, final salary pensions. Before you get too much into the differences, also just explain to anyone who's going, what's the difference?
What?
What's that?
Absolutely. For most people, there are two sorts of pensions. So one's like a personal pension. It's what I've got. That doesn't help you. But ultimately, what you're doing with a personal pension is you're saving to a pot of money, and you get a statement every year that says your pot of money is worth X amount. The other sort's a final salary pension, and the final salary pension is based on your final salary. So you normally get a percentage of your final salary when you reach pension age. And the differences between the two and their effect from COVID has been quite striking. So on that first personal pension pot, those are the people who've been really badly affected by it, because often their pension funds are invested in things like the stock market. So you may well, if you had a very risky portfolio, you might well have seen losses of 25 or 30%. And of course, that's going to have a dramatic impact if you're using that as part of a pension sharing order, for example, as to how much you might receive or you might be giving up. Bizarrely, and without getting too technical, for final salary pensions, actually something like the reverse has happened. Now, when I say this is specifically for private company final salary schemes, so if you've worked at a bank perhaps, or one of the big companies that they've created, because something called the gilt yield has fallen, what that has meant is that actually the transfer value of the pension has risen. So whilst you might have expected in the past, as part of your sharing order, to have got £100,000 because the transfer value was, say, 200, that might well have gone up now by a number of percentage points. So it's really interesting to see how this will then play out into the financial settlements, to see what's fair and whether or not it's still fair that he keeps all the final salary pension and you keep all the private personal pension.
And I'd just like to reiterate for those who are new to this and have never had a session with me, financial planners are the experts on this. They're the ones who will explain this to you in English in a way that you'll understand. And what about property prices? Because obviously that's a big one. If you're thinking, well, I've got to sell the marital home and you're trying to put a value on it, what guidance can you give people at the moment?
It's such a tricky one, isn't it? I'm trying to sell my house at the moment. We had the surveyor around yesterday, but he hasn't told us what he's given the value at. I've seen some reports that have suggested that property prices are going to fall between 7% and 23%. I mean, that's a huge range. And anecdotally, what I've heard as well is that surveyors are now, they're just not putting a price on property. So they're saying, look, I reckon your property is worth £250,000 plus or minus 15%, which is, it's very hard to make a call on that sort of figure. And actually, you see, and it would be true in commercial property as well, which some people might hold in their pensions. So it's really hard, and certainly in those cases, and they really fall into most cases. Possibly one way of getting around it is just to say, look, I tell you what, let's take our foot off the accelerator and just wait this out for a couple more months so we can see how the market's going to develop. My feeling is that property prices will fall a little bit, but actually, because interest rates are now so low, they'll be very well supported by very cheap mortgage repayments. So they might not fall as far as you think they will do.
So at the end of the day, as with so much in life, it's about making an educated guess and cutting a deal. So it's not necessarily a reason to sit around and wait, because the uncertainty is going to go on for a while, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I think one of the other tricky things, of course, with property is how the mortgage market works. And I think immediately after this pandemic arrived, a lot of mortgage companies said, right, that's it, we're not going to lend. And actually, you've now seen a lot of mortgage companies, well, not a lot, more and more mortgage companies coming back into the market. And actually, whilst they're not perhaps lending to the same loan to values that they were previously, they are starting to lend, which is, I think, really positive. Because it means the market will move, and actually then we will be able to understand what property values are. And importantly, for people going through divorce, especially if they're trying to keep the marital home with a mortgage, it will mean that the chances of them being able to collect a mortgage are that much higher. But I hasten to add, if you thought 3 months ago that you'd got the mortgage all sewn up and it was not a problem, you were away and a host, it's really worthwhile going back now and making sure that still is the case, because the worst thing you can do is get all the things signed up and only to find you can't get a mortgage.
So definitely, so good advice there. It could actually be beneficial to some people in the situation they are in if they want to keep the house, but whatever deals that have already been struck, go back and double check that those providers are still doing what they need to do. And just to round off, I wanted to just mention to everyone, I'll be putting a QR code up for it later. Henry and I'll be collaborating on a workshop, and there'll be other amazing experts there as well, and it's going to be a divorce financial workshop. So could you just very briefly tell us what kind of, you don't have to be specific, it's not till the 18th of June, but what kind of things will people do when they come along to that workshop? Because you've already done a few with me, haven't you?
I haven't written all the slides yet, but don't know. I mean, it's a great workshop, and as you say, we get a number of different experts in. For my part, what we try to do is we go through the different sort of asset classes that you've got, and I then look to explain how you should be looking to value those and their value to you both now and in the future, and how you can pull a plan together. Primarily so that you can go into the mediation right at the start, armed with knowledge about what you want and what you need to pull out from those negotiations, but also so you've got an understanding of what you need in the future, so that when you get to retirement or that stage down the line, the sort of money that you need to set aside for that date. Excellent,
that's great. I can't wait. And also, as anyone who's been on any of these workshops knows, that Henry puts it all into plain English and it's not scary. So I'm hoping you're looking forward, as I am, to the chakra cleansing at the end of the show. Thank you. Thank you so much. We all do need a good clean. Thanks so much for coming on. Bye for now.
Cheers, Susie. Bye bye.
So we're moving forwards. First, though, we've got the divorce masterclass. You've got a little bit of learning, and we're going to be talking about anger. So as part of the divorce first aid section of the divorce masterclass, by the way, if you use the QR code here, I'll pop it up again later as well, you can still access the whole main first section, the prep section, for nothing, just as part of a preview. So especially if you're in the early stages, do take advantage of that. There's lots of videos, lots of information, lots of things to think about. But now I just wanted to talk about the anger stage. So in divorce first aid, we have a second stage of that, is where we need a thermometer. Now the trouble with a thermometer is it measures the temperature of the divorce, but it may not be quite long enough, because divorce temperature can rise very, very fast, and it has massive impact on what can happen. I'm going to talk about a few of extreme version of that as well, murder statistics and other acts of divorce rage. And we're going to talk a little bit too about the understanding the links between the anger stage and how it causes adversarial divorce. I've got a quote for you from Jack Benny. He said once that my wife Mary and I have been married for 47 years, and not once have we had an argument serious enough to consider divorce. Murder, yes, but divorce, never. So joking aside, when it comes to testing the temperature of a divorce, you will notice, as I said, that thermometer may not be quite long enough. Several thousand intimate relationships each year are terminated early by murder. Roughly 1/4 of all women slain in the US are killed by a husband, a boyfriend or an ex, according to government statistics. And don't think this murdering spouses is just by the husbands. A groundbreaking study of spousal homicides that was run in 1988 found that 4 in 10 killer spouses are women. We may remember way back when British MP Chris Huhne and Vicky Pryce, they were in the media. They didn't murder each other, but they did turn an acrimonious breakup into a national spectacle because they were so angry with each other, and it ended in imprisonment for them both. Angry architect Andrew McGarry, he expressed his bitterness over his divorce by driving his car into the matrimonial home in Wales and then setting fire to it, whilst his 6-year-old was inside watching TV. Now luckily the 6-year-old was fine, but you must never underestimate the fury and anger that overcomes people when they're going through divorce. Their rage makes them go a little crazy, and it also makes them forget about their children and do immeasurable harm. So when someone is in the anger stage of divorce, you may not be able to help them very much, but you may be able to help their children. So how can you help? So if it's not you that are in that stage, it's someone close to you or a work colleague, don't just stand by when you see that their kids are being used as weapons in the divorce battle. Speak out. So in a divorce survey by Mishcon de Rea, 1 in 5 parents said that their primary objective during separation is to make the experience as unpleasant as possible for their former spouse. Half of those parents involved said that they had sought a day in court to haggle over residency arrangements, despite knowing it made matters worse for their children. It's really hard to speak your mind when you feel that you may get the fury of an angry family member or work colleague unleashed on you by you pointing out that the way they're behaving is going to be harming their children. But hurling blame at them is not what I'm suggesting. It might be just something like, hey, I can see you're really angry at the moment, but your kids matter more than getting back at your ex, don't they? So I want to support you in keeping your eye on what really matters here, which is making this divorce less damaging to your children than it needs to be. Don't let your anger at your ex be greater than your love for your children. Now on the Alternative Divorce Directory, we've got some experienced parenting experts and communication experts, people who can offer support and useful training in how to deal with that ex that you're angry with without letting your anger become a ball and chain that's tying you to a relationship that you're trying to escape. Because that's what anger does. It actually keeps you in the relationship. It stops you from moving forwards. Now, why do we get angry, and what benefit does it have? Well, when someone is in anger stage of divorce, they it's what it's doing is it's keeping them away from the next stage, which we'll bring up in a minute. I just wanted to give a few tips on how to deal with the anger. So you can do things like taking up squash, hitting a punch bag, running is a good one. Anything that physically allows you to vent the fury out of your body in healthy ways. Dance is a brilliant one as well. There's only a very small percentage of approximately, well, certainly were about 240,000 marriages when I last looked in the UK, and there are about 2 million marriages in the US, and they usually end perfectly well without any murder. So in most instances, a spouse is not going to do anything too terrible, and they're not going to let their rage cause some kind of harm physically, but they still can do an awful lot of damage emotionally. So it's important to understand that when someone's in the anger stage, the last thing they need you is to join in and get caught up in the drama. So whether you're the person who's in that state yourself, pulling others in, or whether you're having to deal with that person as your ex, as your brother, sister, work colleague, just be aware that your own experience of anger against your own ex perhaps can lead you to get drawn into this game. And it's much better for you just to stay out of it. Don't fuel the fire. It's also better to understand that the pain of divorce, it's so bad that what happens is that when you're angry, that you're able to actually keep that pain warded off. It's really hard to feel the pain when you're fuming. So it does kind of serve a purpose, but you want to move through it quickly, and you want to stop stop causing any long-term damage to the children, and possibly losing most of your friends in the process. So one of the other things I found really useful as a way to deal with anger is to do what children do, because they have a lot of anger, they have a lot of powerlessness in their lives. So what they do is they cry until we tell them not to, of course. So crying is a fantastic way to get rid of anger. I used to sit down with a good friend and watch a real tearjerker movie and have a really good sob. It really works, and you can get a lot of anger out of your body that way. So you may not have heard that one. I highly recommend it. It used to work for me very, very well. Now we're going to move forward to the next stage, but I just wanted to share with you one more quote. It's a little bit dark. It's by Jean Kerr, and she says that and I would like to say here that not all lawyers are like those spoken of by Jean Kerr in this quote. But she says, a lawyer is never entirely comfortable with a friendly divorce, any more than a good mortician wants to finish his job and then have the patient sit up on the table. But the point I'm making here is that although many lawyers are absolutely not wanting to make things nasty, the fact is that if you're very, very angry because of the way the family law system works, you may find that it does tend to go down that road, and it can add fuel to the fire. So be aware that when you're in an anger stage, going and pushing the divorce forwards, working with the lawyers, it may be a good idea to get rid of that anger first. Move now on to shared stories.
I suppose what I would say is, tonight, it's a beautiful day out there, it's sunny, it's warm. I've been in a relatively sort of good mood. It's one of those sort of evenings, so I quite often put a positive spin on things, but that masks what is, still a complete roller coaster, So actually, I think, I don't know when it was, I remember, actually it was a week last Monday, and I just had a really low day, and then in the evening, I think it was just before that Wednesday when everything was supposed to be, a bit more free and easy with the lockdown slightly, and I just had to get in the car and just drive. I really felt low. With that comes an element of acceptance, but also sort of shock that I'm still in this situation where I'm in a sort of limbo. We are, because we're still in the same house. That hasn't changed, and also sort of emotionally as well. Still, And there's an element of trauma, being sort of on the receiving end of someone who had an affair, to whatever extent, and I still don't even know the extent. I think it was a cry for help on her part as much as anything. And the other thing I'm aware of was that, our 8-year-old daughter, well, there's still a few years to go there, of course, but, probably she's entering her teenage years soon. I mean, she's already has some mobility, going into the town with her friend. Before I know it, she'll have that sort of freedom. Was it really worth that huge battle, potentially legal battle, financial, to go through the childcare arrangements, And so the question really is, in terms of using your sort of strategy approach, your guidance, what the advantage has been. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a sort of simple answer in some ways, because it means that it's taken a sort of holistic approach where, it's kept all what is an incredibly complex process glued together in some way, and not just a sort of chaotic mess of legality, emotions, finances. It's kept a sort of a balance between all of those things, with a way forward in those things, whether it's emotionally, financially, legally. That initial conversation is useful because it means, and I think that's the point I was at when I went to the financial workshop, although it wasn't just about the finances, it was realizing that the sort of balance was swinging towards a situation where things were not going to work out, but it was having an anchor of some kind to grab hold of, and not just be in a sea of absolute chaos. So yeah, I mean actually what we talked about in terms of sort of quality of time and the way you spend time with others, whatever those relationships are, account for a lot, actually. And I never appreciated that, and that's why I am in this position. It's not just me, of course it's not me, but and there are lots of reasons why that may have happened, but I never appreciated enough what I had, actually, and so if the benefit comes, and it's still early for me in that, I think, but if there's a benefit to it all, then it's sort of, a new lease of life, but with an ability to appreciate what I have around me and live in the moment more, because I never lived in the moment. That was the problem. It was always looking at the future, bigger, better, wanting more, and even though that was in the interest of my family, as I thought, it wasn't really, because what they wanted is me, and they wanted me here, and by the time I realised that, it was too late, so in terms of the relationship and the life, so yeah, something like that.
Oh, I love that story. Thank you so much to that divorcing dad who very generously shared his story. He's still in the middle of it. And I'm always moved by how many it's people I meet or clients I work with, how often they make such amazing progress during that journey, such realizations, and they are capable of such emotional courage. And I love sharing these kind of powerful stories, and it doesn't always have to be, it can be sad, it can be funny. If you've got a story you'd like to share, do please get in touch, and we'd love to see. It can be, as that one was, completely anonymous. So right now, before we get to our healing, we're going to have a quick roundup. So get ready with your phones, put them on camera mode, because you're going to have a little QR frenzy. If you're not quick enough, don't panic, they'll still work on the replay. Okay, so the first one, we have got a date for the next divorce financial workshop coming up. It's on the 18th of June. Because it's online, it'll actually be on Zoom. You'll be able to access it really, really easily. And I want you to, if you use that QR code, you can register for it right now. Obviously, we do limit the numbers because we can't have too many people in at once, because it's very interactive. You can ask questions, and the lovely Henry, who you saw earlier, will be the financial planner that we have there on that one. And there he is, Henry. You've got his QR code there. If having heard all about the amazing knowledge that he has on the financial fields, it's not just about investment, it's the practicalities of mortgages, everything you need to know about the divorce finances. And Henry's very generously offering you all, if you particularly if you have pensions and properties in your divorce, just book in. Using this, you can get a 15-minute call with him for absolutely nothing at all. He's very generous with his time, and I really do recommend you do talk to a financial planner if you're in the divorce process. As I mentioned earlier, this is the QR code if you want to access the divorce masterclass. You can get a whole big chunk of it without even putting in your credit card details, so make the most of that, especially if you're in the early stages. And this one, if you're not already a member of the Best Way to Divorce Facebook group, you really should join. It's a great community. We've got, I think, over 650 people in there now, from the UK, from the United States. We've got South Africans. We've got a wide range of lovely people, and we've also got some great professionals and experts from the Alternative Divorce Directory in there, so you don't just get me helping you out in there. So do join. If you use Facebook, you should, and you're getting, even thinking about divorce, is a very healthy place for you to be. And Julia is coming up in a minute, but this is her code. You will see it also on the slide when we see her appear, but this will give you access to more information through her website. And now we have Julia coming on board, so I'm going to move across and welcome her. Just a very brief intro. I've known Julia for a while. She was part of the very first ever divorce fair in the UK, which I ran, the Starting Over show in Brighton. She has amazing, bright, wonderful energy. She's fantastic in so many areas, whether it's she runs marathons. She's one of those people who walks her own walk and talks her own talk. She's someone I have immense respect for. She's brilliant in any kind of relationships and healing, and she's generously offered to come on today to focus on the healing, that we are going to get her back as an expert in later events and later shows, and she's going to help us. If you don't know where your chakras are, you are definitely going to find out now, so I'm going to bring you in now. Hello, Julia.
Oh, hello, Susie. How lovely to see you. Really lovely.
And thank you so much for being so patient and waiting till the end of the show, because you're our finale. And what I'm going to do is be quiet now and let you take over.
Thank you very much. And it's been a really lovely show. I've very, very much enjoyed it. Thank you. So what I'm talking tonight about is about healing, really, and why I'm talking about the chakras. It's because I don't know if any of you know about chakras, but our whole body is obviously made up of energy, and we have 114 chakras in the body, energy centers.
Julia, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but this is too important to have. I can hear almost like heavy breathing in the background, so I'm just checking there's no one else near the microphone or no. Brilliant, it's all good. It's fine when I stop, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Maybe it's just in my earpiece, but if you could, I don't want to interrupt the flow, so if you can begin that again, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Does that sound a bit better?
That's brilliant. No weird background breathing now.
That's good. I shall begin again. So we're all made up of energy, and in our body we have 114 energy centers called chakras. We have 7 main ones going all the way up through the center of the body, and we have, from these energy centers, there are lots of channels called nadis, and that send the energy around the body in a wonderful way. And when we're really healthy, and when we're really well, and when we're really happy, all of the energy is flowing really, really well. But of course, if we're not happy and we're feeling distressed and stressed and upset, which of course is often when we're going through divorce, then what happens is that the energy can get suppressed, which means you don't feel as well physically, you don't feel as well emotionally. And of course, you can also get unbalanced, because the 7 main ones up the body are the ones that really, really influence our health. And it can get suppressed, and unbalanced, so that you're more in the base chakras. So first, what I'll do, before I actually do the actual meditation, is I'll explain to you a little bit about each chakra and where they are in the body and their purpose, really. So at the base of our body we have the base chakra, and that's to do with survival, and they all have a color and they all have a sound. So the color of the base chakra is red, and the sound of the base chakra is which is what we're going to be doing as we go up. And then we come up to the sacral chakra, which is orange in colour, and it's just in the base of our stomach. It's the hara as well. It's the source of all our power. And it's orange in colour, and it's about creation. So once we're surviving, we start to create. So therefore, we'd have got a home and a place there where we've got shelter. And then we start to produce children and create jobs and create homes. And that's the sacral chakra. It's orange in colour. The sound is ooh. Then we move up to the solar plexus chakra, which is just in the dark of the stomach. And that is about a sense of self. And so that is yellow in colour. The sound is oh. And of course, if we're out of balance, then we can get everything stuck in the survival chakras, because we're trying to survive. We're losing, as Henry was talking, we're losing, homes are being sold, children are being, don't know where they're going to go. And so everything about that, everything you've created, your home, your family, your sense of self, your identity perhaps being in that family, is all being shaken up. So they can get very out of balance. But then we move up to the heart chakra. And that is, of course, the bridge. That's the bridge. And this is where Susie was talking about coming through the anger. It's when we come back into our heart, which is where we give and receive love. And it's green in colour. And the sound is ah. And then we move up to being able to express, communicate well. We have the throat chakra, blue in colour, and it's about communication. It's about intuition. So if we can bridge from the survival where everything's in turmoil, if we can bridge through the heart chakra into the communication and be able to start to communicate, even with the difficulty with the ex-partners, all the things that are going on. And then we move up into the third eye, which is indigo in colour, and the sound is meow. Did I say the sound? Sorry, it's meh, and it's blue. Then we come up to the third eye, where we get more insight. We get more insight into what's going on. We get understandings. We get realizations, and the sound is meow. And then we come up to the crown chakra, which is white, violet in colour. It's when we're more connected to ourselves, because of course, ultimately, when we connect more to who we truly are, then we're able to communicate, understand, and have much more empathy with everything that's going on. So this is why this chakra healing is so vital. Even if you're, do one of them or one of the areas, if you're feeling upset, particularly the heart. So what I'm going to do very quickly, what I'd normally do is take you up and do 7 sounds on each chakra, and then 7 down again, or even 3 up and 3 down. But what I'll just do now is I'll just go up 1 of each sound, and you can do it with me. Then you just get the idea. And then what we're going to do at the top is just rest for a little bit in silence and come all the way down.
What I'm going to do is, because I want to do this, and just to say, I'm sure it doesn't matter if people can't sing and get the note as beautifully as you do, because that's my first thought. So
I'm a child. It's amazing I lead chakra and chanting workshops, because I was one of those children that was told not to sing and was told I couldn't sing. So no, everybody, do please, it's the sound, and it's the vibration in your body. So,
and I'm going to turn my microphone on off, so I won't just frighten everybody whilst we do this, so I can join in. But just before you start, if you could just briefly, just because it's so important, this about the vibrations, isn't it? And it has a real healing effect. So if you could say a little bit about that before we start, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, so of course, having these sounds in the body, what they'll do is they can help clear the tension away. They can help heal. They can help you really, really, of course, balance, because all the chakras start to feel, that you feel better, because they aren't being, they aren't stuck. Because they can get very stuck, your energy can get very stuck. And sound is an incredible thing, a bit like Susie was saying, to go in and shout and get stuff out of you. It's a very important thing, or cry. But actually the chakras, the sound in the body vibrates, you'll feel it. If you were doing, on my little thing that Susie's put up there, that code goes to my website, but it actually goes to a Facebook group where I do this on a Monday morning live. So you can join the group and come along and do it at 10 o'clock on Monday mornings, and I just do 3 up and 3 down of each. But you'll feel the vibration in the base chakra, you'll feel it in the the tummy, in the heart, And if you do it more, and then what happens is it actually does clear away the pain. So, so what we'll do is we'll take a breath. I will briefly just do a little explanation before each one again. I'll just say the colour, the sound, then you can do it with me. So we'll take a breath in first, and then we'll take one breath in, then we'll come down. The next breath will start. So we take a breath in. And then it's the base chakra, red in colour. The sound is so we go. Then we come to the sacral chakra, orange in colour. The sound is ooh. We come to the solar plexus. It's yellow in colour, and the sound is oh, oh. Then we come to the heart chakra, green in colour, and the sound is ah. Then we come to the throat chakra. It's blue in colour, and the sound is meh, meh. Then we come to the third eye, indigo in colour. The sound is meow, Then we come to the crown chakra, white or violet in colour. The sound is me, me. Then we're going to have a little rest in silence. We make our way down. So then we take a breath in. Third eye. Throat. Heart. Solar plexus. Sacral. Base. again, be a little rest in silence. And namaste.
Thank you. That was amazing. I've never done that before. I'm going to be on there on a Monday morning, and well, unfortunately, I think I have to work, but I can do the replay, can't I? Do the replay.
I just started it. It's Monday, so someone asked me if I'd do some live chakra chanting. So I started last Monday, and 17 people came. I was like, oh, so they obviously want to do this. When you start something,
It's like having like a workout. It's amazing. It's amazing. I just got this giggly thought that all these people were getting divorced in lockdown, thinking, what are they doing? So I hope people do this on. If you're catching it on the replay, please do it, because it is lovely. It's lovely, and this isn't fluffy stuff, is it? I mean, you and I both know, and you've been divorced through divorce yourself, haven't you? It is so important to get into a good emotional, psychological state, not just because that's great for you if you're a parent with your kids, but because it changes the way you manage the divorce. So thank you so much, Julia, for your contribution, and I look forward to seeing you in the future back on the show.
Fabulous. I look forward to it very much. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Oh, that was lovely. And so we're rounding up now with just the usual phrase, which I hold very dear. And I hope to see you at the next divorce TV show on Fridays. Please share this. Please share it with anyone you know who's at any stage of the process. There's so much great information. And if you would like to be on the show, whether you're a professional or someone who's been there and done it or thinking about it and you want to share your story, please come on board. And so my parting words are, in the war of divorce, on the battlefield of family separation, always make peace your weapon of choice.